Hello again, everybody. I'm Richard Tripp, and welcome to another edition of Tripp's Corner. Today we visit with the very successful Cueva Tennis coach, DJ Johnson, coming up on Tripp's Corner.
My friend, the low rider. The low rider is a little higher.
So, Coach, welcome to the show. Welcome to Tripp's Corner. You know, I have to ask, you coaching over at La Cueva, but you grew up on the west side of Albuquerque. We don't know the west side, or people may not know the west side the way it was back then as compared to it is now. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm a Rio Grande Raven. Graduated in class of '62, and wonderful memories. I still have some friends in town. We talk about some of the old days, of course. That's part of it. And at that time, there wasn't a West Mesa High School, and so Rio Grande and Sandia were built about the same time, I think 1959. And so, I went to Rio Grande High School, Ravens. In fact, what's really funny, Richard, is I'll see kids that play for Rio Grande, and I'll say, hey, do you want me to sing the fight song for you? And a lot of them don't know the fight song. So I'll rip out the fight song for Rio Grande, and they'll go, oh my gosh, he was a Raven. Yeah, I was.
You want to sing a few choruses now, do you? I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
I can.
No. So what was it like? I mean, Albuquerque back then on that side of town?
Well, it was a different time. Of course, I took the bus, I think, until about my junior year when I had my license and everything, and but it was just a super time. We had, of course, the volcanoes. Everyone would take little hikes up to the volcanoes, and my mom and dad were very good friends with the Unsers, and so my first race car, so to speak, was that Al Sr. gave me his soapbox derby. We changed the paint, and here I go. I was in the soapbox derby.
That's pretty awesome, and just saying that. Tell us a bit about your parents, if you will, because I love the stories you were sharing with us before we came on the air, especially with your father being a postman, but not the postman traditional as we know today. Tell us a bit about your parents growing up.
Well, they were great people, Catherine and Cliff, and my mom was a medical secretary. She was quite active in the community. She actually, I mentioned the Unsers, but I think she should probably have been a race car driver because she loved to get brand new cars. She had a Shelby Mach, whatever it was, and she loved race cars. My dad was worked for the post office. He was a railway mail clerk between Albuquerque and La Junta, Colorado. All kinds of great stories, of things that were in the railroad car, and good time, really good time.
You also played a lot of youth sports. You played baseball, you played basketball growing up. And it wasn't just about tennis, but tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was just very much a part of my life. Coach Villa was my Little League baseball coach. Coach Tuttle, Larry Tuttle, one of the great all-time basketball players at University of New Mexico. He was my high school basketball coach. And tennis, I learned how to play tennis. Mrs. Bull, way back when, at the old Albuquerque High indoor gym on Saturdays, she gave lessons. So that's how I learned how to play tennis. The Tennis Club of Albuquerque offered a few of us scholarships to come play. We got better because we played some of the senior players. We washed the courts and fed the people at the grill, but that's how we that's how we learned how to play tennis and how we improved. But great memories. I played all the sports. I was on the Junior Dukes Little League baseball team. The Junior Dukes, boy, that was hot stuff in those days.
Tell us about the Junior Dukes. I've never heard of the Junior Dukes.
Well, of course, You know, the Albuquerque Dukes at the
Right.
time, the old stadium down by the Albuquerque Zoo. You know, when the zoo, I think, had one lion, one crow, one deer, one kangaroo. We had it all, but it was one of everything. But across the street, of course, the old metal bleachers that you could hear those games when there'd be a rally. You know, people would be stomping their feet on the metal bleachers, and old Tingley Field, and great memories. You know, great memories.
That sounds pretty awesome. I've never heard of the Junior Dukes. That's pretty fascinating. I guess it's safe to say that had Noah been building the ark back then, this was not the place to come because he was looking for two of everything back then.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Now we played on Lavalin Elementary School, you know, baseball field and Little League field, and there was no grass. I mean, grass was a luxury for somebody else, I guess.
You know, I myself grew up playing baseball on dirt, so I totally understand your grass to us was a luxury as well. So now, you know, your youth days about getting into tennis. You know, you had the inspiration there. Any other tennis players kind of stand out that you kind of looked at and kind of looked up to during that time?
Well, sure. You know, when I was growing up, we had a wall a couple blocks from my house, and I would hit on the wall, and I would set up little games. I'd set up a tennis draw, and I would set, you know, if I hit the ball 5 times in a row on the wall, then it would be 15 love, and I would play these little Wimbledon U.S. Open games where Pancho Gonzalez was my opponent, or Rod Laver, who I was great honor for me, and that I ended up working for Rod Laver and Roy Emerson a few years later out of college. But you know, all these superheroes of mine, you know, the great American players, and I would set up these tennis draws, and that's how I got better, just repetition on the wall. There weren't any, I never had a private tennis lesson in my life.
Sort of self-taught, then I guess you could
Very,
say.
very much so.
How old were you when you decided to take it up?
Probably in the vicinity of about 9 and 10 years old. Yeah, I was doing all the other sports too, but I was starting to hit the tennis ball. I'd play with my dad, and we'd go to Denver, play at the old Wash Park courts over there, and I remember the first time I finally beat him, and I was off and running after that.
Do you remember your first match going back to those times in Denver?
Oh, you know, just a little bit. I started playing some junior tournaments, and I mean, I remember I think about the first summer that I played locally in some of the local tournaments. I might have won 1 or 2 games the whole summer. But things got better, that's for sure.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales. Proview Network crew, assemble! High school sports are back live on Proview Sports Network.
Wondering if you can afford the ring of her dreams? At Crown Jewels & Coin, we actually double the diamond for what you would pay at a chain store. Trade in your old jewelry towards GIA certified diamonds. Choose from a large selection of settings featuring Veragio. We can customize a design and offer no credit check 2-year interest-free financing. Get more than you ever thought possible here at Albuquerque's family jeweler for over 50 years. Crown Jewels & Coin, for all you treasure. 3248 San Mateo at Kruger's Corner.
So now, Coach, here you are at Rio Grande High School. You know, tell us a little bit about, you know, besides tennis, you also played basketball. So tell us what it was like over at Rio Grande High School.
Well, I played basketball in the fall and in the winter, and then, of course, tennis I had started to play, and they started a high school team at Rio Grande. Most of the kids really hadn't had much experience. There was a couple of us. My good friend Bob Armijo, he played a nice game of tennis, and our coach, had never coached the tennis team before. I think he was Mr. Olguin was our chemistry teacher, God bless him, and he was a very wonderful, nice man. But I think I sort of helped him learn how to score in tennis. So everything was pretty basic. And so as things progressed, I played better and better. I played all the high school tournaments, the sectional tournaments, and Highland High School at the time was the big powerhouse. A lot of their players were members of the tennis club of Albuquerque, and so I played a lot with them in the summer. One of my mentors was Jack Kennedy. Dr. Jack Kennedy's retired dentist, and so he really helped me with my game a lot. And as it progressed, it was really a neat deal because in the old days, this is what we were playing with, the wooden rackets. Look at this thing. I mean, it's a little bit small. And then, of course, as it progressed, Jimmy Connors made famous the T2000, the wire aluminum racket. And then, of course, there was the aluminum head racket. I used this for a long, long time. And, the U.S. Open just finished, and right. Novak Djokovic, I'm kind of lucky because I do use head rackets, and this is the racket that he won the U.S. Open with. I don't know if it's called salt and pepper, but it's black and white. And you can see the technology, how different it is. This is the head of the rackets they're using nowadays. This is what they were using in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So kind of fun. It's fun to watch the whole, I got off the subject a little bit, but it's kind of fun to see the whole change of things.
Well, you and I were talking before we came on. I said, yesterday's racket, if you will, kind of resembles a badminton racket.
Yes.
By today's standards, you look at today's rackets. Let me ask you this. I know we're going to go off target a little bit here. We'll come back. But when it comes to redesigning, a racket, is it the pro player themselves that kind of puts it out there? Does a certain company kind of come out with one, or how does that kind of work? Because to go from the size they were to now, I mean, someone's behind that.
Well, there has been a lot of technology, and of course with the new materials, the space-age materials of graphite and boron, different things like that. Players like Federer and Djokovic and Serena Williams, yes, they do have input with their companies. And Rafael Nadal. I mean, they're making also millions of dollars in endorsements. I think Federer makes something like Rolex pays him $20 million a year for the next 10 years for wearing a Rolex watch, and of course the Wilson rackets and the whole thing. So Roger Federer is, I think, the second most endorsed athlete in the world. I think one of the soccer players, I don't know if it's Mechie or one of the South American guys, gets more in money, but Federer does okay.
So now, Coach, here we are at the University of Albuquerque, St. Joseph's College, if you will. Tell us how you got there. What was it like? Because you also played basketball at the University of Albuquerque.
I certainly wasn't one of the top players in the city. The Russell brothers were excellent players at that time. Doug McCurdy, who's a good friend of mine, was an excellent player. But, I did well, and I worked pretty hard, and I ended up getting a kind of a combination basketball and tennis scholarship to College of St. Joseph, which became University of Albuquerque. And that was in 1963.
Back then, of course, like you said, it wasn't a big deal for college athletes back then to play, two sports. It wasn't that. But somewhere along the line, the basketball came to an end, so to speak. And
yes, it did.
So now comes the tennis day, just strictly the tennis thing here. Were there ambitions? I mean, now you're at the University of Albuquerque. I know you're going to talk about that, but was there that feeling of, man, I could probably play at the next level even? But kind of take us through all that.
Well,
University of Albuquerque or St. Joseph's?
I was very hopeful to get to that next level. I had the wonderful experience of our number one man who came to the University of Albuquerque, and our number one singles player was a gentleman from Mexico City, Geraldo Salinas. And he was one of the top players in Mexico, top 10. And, I latched onto him like glue. And actually went to Mexico a couple summers and played in some of the Mexican tournaments over there in that circuit. So, I learned a lot from him. It was just playing and playing better people, playing some of the senior players at Tennis Club of Albuquerque. And so things got better, got pretty decent actually.
Now, you were telling us before how St. Joseph University of Albuquerque, of course, was an NAIA school.
Right.
So you'd play Highlands, you'd play a lot of the smaller schools. Obviously, you would play the bigger schools from time to time. What was that like?
That was great. I mean, road trips, we didn't have the luxury plane rides or anything like this. We had a big weenie wagon, they called it. And I think it held about 12, 14 people. So we'd take an I-25 trip. We'd go, we'd play Texas Western, as it was called at the time, now UTEP. We'd go all the way up I-25 and play, School of Mines, Colorado College, Regis College, Denver University. And we even got all the way up to Laramie to play at University of Wyoming. So it was pretty exhausting, but sure was a heck of a lot of fun.
You guys have to drive the bus yourselves?
Sometimes we all chipped in. In fact, I got a speeding ticket between Las Cruces and Hatch, and all the guys chipped in to pay for the speeding ticket. It wasn't too bad, but we were trying to get back to the dance, Richard. We were trying to get back to the dance at the school. So I had an excuse. Just kidding.
But those are good times, actually, if you kind of think about it, because like you said, maybe by today's standards, even the bigger programs, they do fly from time to time, depending on where they're going. But back then, really quick, how were those road trips when it came to just eating and things?
Oh, my goodness. We'd usually share the hotel with, we'd usually travel with the baseball team. They would probably have some games, a doubleheader. And I remember coming back after they had played a game with Denver University. And there was an altercation that broke out, and some of the guys had black eyes and this and that. And we came back from playing at the Denver Country Club, which was all hotsy-totsy. And we're looking at all our buddies who had black eyes and split lips and stuff. And I went, what the heck went on? But the main thing is, it wasn't too luxurious. We'd share a room. One of our shortest players, his bed would be the bathtub. So, those were pretty good times. There'd be 6 or 7 in a room.
And that's good for first.
High school sports are back live on Proview Sports Network.
TurboThreads is a proud sponsor of Proview Networks.
Almost 30 years of experience means fast service, great prices, and a wide selection of apparel from t-shirts to performance sport shirts, even jackets and hats. They feature low minimums and no setup charges on most orders. TurboThreads is located at 1503 Golf Course Road in Rio Rancho, or find them on Facebook, online at turbothreads.com, or call 999-1234 for TurboThreads.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
For 55 years, people have bought trucks from Tillery in Los Lunas. We have a great selection of vehicles, the quality service department, and some of the best deals in the state. But most importantly, we found people prefer to buy trucks from people who actually drive trucks.
Tillery is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Locally owned and operated, located in Las Lunas, right off I-25, exit 203. Hey everyone, Adam Deal here with Proview Networks. Extreme Clean is a proud sponsor and supporter of Proview Networks and all high school sports athletics. Owner Mike McLean and Extreme Clean specialize in carpet cleaning for apartment, realty, business, and residential clients. With over 20 years experience, attention to detail and quality customer service matters. For more information, give them a call, 505-221-6440, Extreme Clean. Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili, breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
So, Coach, we were talking about those great road trips you guys used to take. Obviously, there was more to it than just sharing hotel rooms. There was also the meals. Back then, probably there were no alt subs where you could stop at any convenience stores. So how did you guys manage back then?
It wasn't bad. I think Coach Cordova always found the closest furs that he could find, and all you can eat was big in those days.
Yes.
Probably still is, but I mean, that was a big deal. Yep.
So now, Coach, you've graduated from the University of Albuquerque. Now you're going to get involved in coaching. How did you get involved in coaching, and how did you land up becoming the head coach in a very successful career so far at La Cueva High School?
Well, it was kind of an interesting story. I played college tennis, of course, and then I also coached for 2 years the University of Albuquerque. And then I was teaching school. I started teaching school at Del Norte High School. Actually coached the JV team, basketball, and playing tournaments. Summer going over and playing tournaments in Europe and that type of thing. And then as it worked out, there was an exhibition match that came into town between Roy Emerson and Ken Rosewall, 2 great Australians, great all-time players. And I kind of became friends with Roy Emerson, my wife and I, Marcy, and so they invited us. About 2 months later, I get a phone call. Come on out, we need you to be one of our coaches at our adult tennis camps. So I did that for about 3 or 4 years in California, but also all over the United States, Boyne Mountain, Michigan, Hilton Head, in Texas, everywhere. Then I became a club pro. I was one of the first pros at Tanawan Country Club in 1980. The club, the business that built Tanawan, also invited me to come and set up a facility in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, at Century World. From Century World, I went to and set up a resort, Ventana Canyon in Tucson, Arizona. Boy, that was a great transition from the cold and the snow to Tucson. So I was ready to get out of Wisconsin after those 2 years. All the wonderful people, loved it.
Right.
Learned all about bratwurst and beer. And anyway, and then from Tucson, I was in San Antonio, Texas, and then my wife got an administrative degree, and we came back in '89. We've been back to Albuquerque since 1989. At that same time, La Cueva was looking for a boys tennis coach, and I got the job. I guess the rest is history. This spring is will be my 29th year. And I've loved it, every minute of it.
And that's terrific, by the way. I mean, we can sit here and talk for hours about, the championships, if you will. We can sit here and talk for hours about players from the past. But one thing, let's go back when you first got that job. What were you experiencing? What were you kind of going through at the time?
Well, I was pretty much a rookie coach, and we had the first tryouts, and 2 guys show up, and they later became pretty famous Hollywood actors. Doogie Howser. Yep, I almost went bad there. And Freddie Prinze Jr.
Right.
And they went to La Cueva, and they were trying out for the team. And I cut them off the team because they had no ability whatsoever. They were great actors. But
couldn't act in tennis.
But after that first year, I said, you know what? We're going to start a no-cut program. And now we have 2 or 3 JV teams, we have a varsity teams, we have a no-cut program, and I really am proud to say we are really one of the most successful high school teams in the country as well as the state of New Mexico. But it was a real learning experience. I mean, the things I did then that I do now, it's quite a bit different. And it's a different time than it was in the late 80s, that's for sure.
I was just going to ask that question, talking about that. We spoke earlier about the rackets, for example, but high school tennis in general, being at La Cueva all these years till now. Tell us about what, maybe in some respects, way high school tennis has changed.
Well, tennis is done well in New Mexico. We're very, very competitive. We're one of the better teams in the state. We have a great rivalry with El Dorado High School. They have a tremendous program too. But in down south, the teams down south, Carlsbad and the Las Cruces teams, very strong. So Hobbs, we always look forward to seeing them in the spring. I really wish that we would play more matches. We're kind of a little bit curtailed with the number of matches we can play up north, but it's okay. We work with what we've got, and I'm very proud of our program.
Obviously you've seen, for better or for worse, going back to the early days of La Cueva, but again, just around the state, the number of athletes, that have come out to play tennis, and it's evident. Here we are standing, I believe it's called the New Mexico Tennis Association, Youth Tennis Association. Even that, you were telling me about that, the number of athletes that you have.
Well, yeah, and a lot of the coaches have really helped out with this, Richard. It's a neat deal. Northern New Mexico Tennis Association. Albuquerque Public Schools didn't have the money for a JV program, also for a mid-school program or anything like that. So the Tennis Association has taken over that. So the mid-school program, right now we're in the middle of that. We have close to 600 kids, 30 plus schools playing in this after school on Thursdays. There are matches throughout Albuquerque going on. It's really neat. I help out the Desert Ridge kids. They feed into my high school. There's a method to my madness. But anyway, we've got some great people that volunteer, put in their time. Some of the coaches in town also help out with the mid-school program. And so Northern New Mexico Tennis Association has done a fabulous job.
Tell us, as we're winding up here, that you have coached so many athletes. We talked about it off camera, the number of athletes we as coaches touch. It's always nice to see those old athletes. And I guess in some respects, is that one of the most rewarding things for you as a coach, to see those old players? Or how do you find it?
It's amazing. The holidays, all of a sudden in the shopping center or something, I'll get a touch on the shoulder. Coach, how you been? And boy, I'm starting to fish, and oh gosh, that was class of '92, whatever. But I get it eventually. But no, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to hear the success stories, and you feel like you've done a small part to help someone's life, especially a young person. And it's a tough time nowadays. It's a different kind of world we live in, Richard.
Right.
And that is one of the things that I've always felt good about, that the kids have gone through a program that has been not just successful, but it's also led to a better thing in their lives.
Last question for you, Coach, is this for DJ Johnson, the coach. It's one of those things where, what is the one characteristic that DJ Johnson would probably be best remembered or known for?
I think a lot of the kids would think perseverance. We don't give up. We keep trying, and if you don't succeed, well, we're gonna keep at it. We're gonna get better, and we're gonna do it with sportsmanship and hopefully good character. We really push for that.
Coach, I want to thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a blast. It's always nice to go back and reminisce and remember those good old days. I want to thank you very much for being on Tripp's Corner here today. like to thank DJ Johnson for being today's guest on Tripp's Corner. Join us again next week for another guest as we take another journey along the way on Tripp's Corner.